Hey guys, here's my second attempt, the first of which evidently I posted and I sounded like a monster, which Jack alerted me to. So I guess you guys all had a pretty good laugh. I certainly did when I watched. And, okay, here we go. By the way, if you see this, it's not because I'm a drunken maniac, it's because there's like a big arts festival and I wanted to get in. Okay, and I have a lung problem, but it's not tuberculosis, so we should be okay. Okay, gender roles, Fridays, here I go. How important are gender roles to me? Not really important. I mean, not that I haven't thought about them a fair amount in my life, but it's kind of hard. I've thought about them a lot because I used to like switch back and forth tons. Like I'd go through I used to skateboard and, so I had like very variable gender roles. Like a lot of days I'd wear pants that were like 8 sizes too big for me, and I'd carry around a skateboard that had like really angry masculine stickers on it, and you know, listen to Eminem so loud on my headphones that everyone else could hear it around me, and wear black hoodies and stuff like that. So, you know, and then other days I wore like skin tight jeans and stuff that I don't want to admit I wore. So I spent a lot of time thinking about my own kind of gender role, but now, I mean, they just really don't matter to me in my everyday life. I don't really care. Do you think trans men adopt a traditionally masculine role? Okay. This, upon transition. This, I think it obviously depends on the trans guy. You know, I think actually in a lot of places it's important for trans guys too, because, you know, if they're living in a really conservative community and they're going to transition, which is already like, whoa, you know, but I think a lot of people are like, well, if you're gonna transition, you know, be a man or be a woman, like, don't toe the line. I think that that's like a kind of a general concept, especially in very conservative areas. And so, you know, some trans guys maybe do adopt like a really hyper-masculine role because it's safe to do that. Jack never did. He, you know, he's always just been Jack. I didn't know him before his transition, but from pictures and, you know, friends and stuff, definitely, you know, he's always just been Jack. The transition has just kind of brought him into a physical manifestation of what he is. Do trans men reject their femininity, and why? I'm not going to address the why. I don't think that necessarily they do. Obviously, many of them do. Especially if they're in the aforementioned situation. But, you know, I know a really effeminate trans guy who's gay and very open about it, and he's pretty obviously, you know, male, but he's, like, very comfortable with that feminine side of him. Jack embroiders. Not sure if he really wants me to say that, but he embroiders, which is a traditionally fairly feminine, kind of like Little House on the Prairie, you know, activity. So I'd say that that's pretty much embracing a certain femininity. Does our society think that sex is binary? Okay, I think definitely society thinks that gender is binary, but, you know, a lot of people in the queer community, a lot of people in general are starting to realize that gender isn't so much binary. Being gender queer, you know, isn't becoming, it's like, you know, in the 80s, like, androgyny was like really big, and that was sort of the start of this thing where like women, you know, a lot of women still are pretty hyper feminine, but a lot of women do sort of like go into a midline, and now increasingly, you know, a lot of women, not just gay women, but a lot of women in general are very comfortable dressing in and acting, expressing pretty non-feminine gender. However, I totally agree with Amber when she says that it's really important to remember that sex is not binary. And I think that's something that really society hasn't fully, taken into kind of the public concept. Whatever, that was badly put, but whatever. Yet, it's still, like, pretty common practice for doctors to reassign sex to intersex people, babies, at birth. Sometimes with parental notification, sometimes not. Like, earlier in the century, and, even up till, like, the 80s, like, a lot of times, parents weren't notified. The doctor was just like, well, this is, like, closer to female genitals, so snip, or, whatever. And so that really needs to be addressed. People need to learn how to see sex as a, non-binary thing. But I think that definitely in society, it still really is. What am I at? Ooh. Okay, how important is masculinity in general? I think it's a factor in trans guys' lives. One of very many factors. In everyone's life, women's life, like Nikki said, it's a factor in how women react to lovers and potential lovers and friends and whatever, and so, I think it's important as a facet of life, but it's also it's just one facet of life. Okay, do you think trans men would exist if society didn't have a binary code, sex code? Yes. A lot of societies don't have a binary sex code, and, or gender role code or whatever. And they still have men and women. Those are two of the, gender or sex expressions, and then there might be a third, a fourth, or a fifth, but, there are still men and women, and there will still be female-bodied people born who, feel that they're male. So, what does society define as masculine? Oh, interesting one. Okay, so there's this idea of, like, sperm, right? That, like, they're, like, aggressive, and they're the active members of insemination and stuff like that. Like, and then, like, the egg is just, like, sitting there, and, if the sperm can, like, get to the egg, then it's, like, and insemination happens. What actually happens is that the egg is, like, way aggressive, and the sperm are just like, and once they get to the egg, they're, like, trying to get in, and the egg is this whole complicated system of being, like, close that door, because that sperm's not getting in, and then, like, it's really selective, and, if a sperm can get in, then the egg decides, and stuff like that. So, I think, anyways, the concept of masculine in society really has to do with that, like, the, kind of phallic, like, sticking out into things, and, if that makes sense, like, aggression, and, assertiveness, and kind of the public sphere, and stuff like that. I definitely consider people to be gender variant. A lot of people try to hide that. I am a very gender variant person. I know Jack is too. We kind of swap roles. We have different sort of manifestations of feminine and masculine roles in our relationships, so. And I think that sex and gender difference, etc., have been addressed pretty well this week, especially since this video is going up late. So, yeah. I guess that was a very kind of fast and concise version of my other video, because my other video was all screwed up for some reason. But I don't know how to edit video very well, so that is bound to happen. Okay, I'll see you all next week, and thanks for an awesome topic.